Okay, so today I wanted to talk about light and dark and a few things about why you're scared of the dark. Why are you scared of the dark? So just to explore that, I want to discuss a bit what the difference between light and dark and the light worker, dark worker, paradigm or phenomenon. So essentially, to me, I've had many people. I've spoken with many people about I've spoken to many people who are scared of the dark. You know, they were saying that when they go to their room or they're ready to go to sleep, they know that there are some entities in their room. Once they turn the lights off, they can sense those entities there, and most of them are saying that those entities are not good entities, they are negative, and that they are even attempting sometimes to hurt them. And so there is this kind of a fear of the dark. I've never really understood why people were scared of the dark. For myself, I think I had a phase when I was really maybe like 4 years old when I had some fears, but then it kind of all washed away when I started understanding certain things. And I've been watching horror movies as really little. Like my parents will actually stop watching and I will keep going on because I became fascinated in the reason of what people are scared about in terms of anything that has to do with darkness and in the dark. And so to me, when you explain to me your fears, it kind of helps me grasp who you are, and what kind of understand also your perception of reality, of your reality at least. And so I just sometimes give people something to think about, okay? So there is some type of association between dark, like a place that's dark or the being in the darkness, and something negative happening. So for those who have that kind of experience, I wanted to tell you that there is no thing more negative happening in the dark than what's happening in the light. And especially when it comes to these entities being present. And my take on it is that actually, when you are in the light, if you really think about it, when you are in the light, sometimes try to look at the sun, directly at the sun when it's like at noon. You get blinded. If the light is too bright, you won't see necessarily everything that's going on. As a matter of fact, a lot of people think, they turn the light on and now I can see better. But if you really see at it, when there's an entity, you turn the lights on, you feel like it's not there anymore. You can see, you can sense, you can feel it any there. This is why a lot of people sleep with the light on. Or they think that the imagination in the dark is going to go and do something to them. So they sleep with the light on. My take is that no matter if the light is on or off, if there's something there, it is still there. And it's a little bit like if you have a car accident, you become blind or you become deaf, or for some reason you lose your ability to speak. If you look at any documentary or interviews that have been done with people who have gone those type of experiences, is that yes, they will lose one sense, but they will see that the other sense develop much faster and they are able to perceive in other ways. So essentially, this is actually what's happening when you turn the light off. When you turn the light off, you lose kind of the ability of you to use your sight the same way you use it in the light. So sometimes when there's still a little bit of dim, you're able to kind of see things. Especially if you are very familiar or you've practiced, you will be able to actually see everything, even though you're in the dark. But that's like most people won't get to that level. The average person is going to be in the dark. They won't be able to see anything. They may be starting to panic, or but at the same time, when you are in the dark, your other sense is going to be heightened up, and this is when you're going to start feeling if the entity was there. The entity was there all along. You just didn't notice it because your senses in the light are just like you looking at something. Your attention is somewhere else, and then when the light is off, your attention goes back to yourself, and now you're able to just really sense what's around you. And for people, they need to, that's the only way they'll be able to really sense things around them. And if you practice or reconnect with yourself, you'll see that you should be able, whether the light is on or off, feel if there's an entity right there with you in the room or not. And so when you say that, when you feel like, oh, okay, I turned the lights off and I feel like something is there, coming closer to me to hurt me, the only difference is like when the light is on, you're not paying any attention to what this entity is giving. And for some reason, this entity is not able to hurt you when you're focusing on something else and not necessarily feeding it all the energy that it can actually use to do whatever they want, including hurting you if that is actually the purpose that they wanted to do. Or just making you scared so they can keep feeding off the energy that you're giving off each time you are being scared and talking about it and panicking. So some of those entities may also be thought form that you created because of your anxieties. When people say your thoughts become things, this is not some mumbo jumbo. It's actually real. If you are scared of the dark and you keep affirming that, eventually this thought is going to manifest and you will see something. So that ball of energy is going to be can take a life on its own if you keep feeding it that way. But there's no reason that you should be scared of the dark if you're not scared of the light, because all of the things, you can find them in the light. If you look at different association, I'm taking you on a different path, because most people will look at dark and light based on what mainstream is feeding you, is telling you, all of those movies saying, you should be scared of the dark, your closet is dark, there's probably something in there. All of these programming, I'll say, are feeding into you. So they're teaching you how to be scared of certain things. And I'm not saying this to bash, the Western culture or anything like that, but easily, if you meet somebody who's from Africa or from other places who grew up there their whole life, you see that, they don't have in their psyche the fact that there's something hurting, that's going to hurt them in the closet or under the bed, because they didn't grow up with that. Now, the caveat is that now in Africa, a lot of people who live in the city are much more westernized, and they start watching the same type of movie, the same type of programming, and then they start having the same type of fears. So most of the time in Africa, when you're scared of something, it's not something that's unreal. It's not something that's coming off from something you saw on TV. It's really either somebody projecting or doing something to you, that something that's actually really going on. It's not necessarily your thought form from watching too many movies or too many things underlying that. And I know some of you may think, okay, I'm not watching those movies and stuff like that, but just as an experience, I've read through a lot of children's book where they had some type of messages underlying negativity with the darkness, underlying, for example, children's stories where, the kid is going to be scared of the dark, is going to be scared of looking under his bed, is going to be scared of going some places, so those are different stories that could be put in different books and different places that you may not even be conscious about it, because it's not just avoiding movies or in TVs. It's the other ways where they are going to feed you that information and feed that fear. And I think it's very interesting to see how people absorb that fear. I grew up in the 80s, and there was this series of horror movies. It was a couple of movies called It, with the clown that comes back. He's like a demon who's like attacking children and killing them. And after that series came out, a lot of people were scared of clowns in the United States. And that was kind of one of the reasons why McDonald's had to get rid of the clown that it used to have. For people who didn't grow up in the 80s, you won't understand. Maybe in the 80s or the 90s, you won't even know about this. But McDonald's used to have a clown, and people who are getting there will be scared. And it wasn't just the kid, it was the adults. And there were so many people, a segment of population that was scared of clowns, that developed this phobia, that they actually created a disease. It became like you could be diagnosed for being scared of clowns, And when you think about it, it came out from movies. So don't downgrade the impact that movies can have in feeding you those fears. And depending on your sensibilities in terms of how you absorb those underlying messages and those programming, you could be having fears of the dark only due to that. So it's one thing to explore, and it's one thing to know. And I think if you realize that this entity is also there when there is the light, you're going to realize that you can switch your attention on and off. And for you, instead of depending for the light to be on and off to switch it, you'll be able to switch it. You should be working on switching it at will, meaning that, even if you are in the dark, this entity cannot hurt you cannot hurt you if you're not focusing and feeding that your energy towards it. Matter of fact, some of the simple things you can do is to simply think about another entity that's there to protect you, to call on your spirit guide or what have you. Or if you're not into angels, guardians and allies and all of your spirit guides, then just make up an entity in your head that is there to protect you. And feed that entity every time you get scared, or you feed that energy to that entity and saying, yeah, you're there to protect me, nothing can happen to me. And the more you're going to feed that entity to counterbalance what you've already been imagining, or the fact that there may be something there that couldn't hurt you, but because you're scared of it, it's feeding off that energy and actually getting stronger. And of course, depending on how long you've been doing that, it may be more or less hard for you to actually fight it off right away. But as you keep feeding energy to this entity that's there to protect you, you'll be able, to balance that out and completely eliminate it. But the essential that I'm always saying is that as a being, you are always in the dark. You are always in the darkness. If you think about it, your soul is within this vessel, as people say, that you have this vessel, you're taking care of it. Your body is the only place you're going to be living, so you have to take care of it, blah, blah, blah. What it also means is that inside of your body, if there's no external light, you are inside and you are in the dark, okay? When the baby is in the womb, and we're putting all this light to see what's going on, how big it's getting and all that stuff, he is in the dark, or she is in the dark. In the darkness, and the baby is not scared. So that means that fear of the dark does not come with you when you come here. It's something that's being taught to you to fear the dark, and you should wonder why they're asking you to fear the dark. If you even think about people who had like out-of-body experiences or near-death experiences, what do they say? I'm seeing the light, I want to go in there. My grandmother shows up, or somebody that they love who passed away shows up and tell them, no, don't come here, don't come into the light, go back to the darkness. And it's by going back to the darkness that they're coming back to their own body. So it's just something about all of this light and dark debate or argument, some people trying to put light above it, saying, oh, I'm a light worker, as if that was much better than being a dark worker or a gray worker or some other type of worker. So there's no need for this kind of hierarchy between colors and between principles. Light is light and dark is dark. There's as much stuff maybe that should scare you. I mean, I shouldn't be saying that. It's just like if you study the light and you study the dark, you will learn a lot of things that they are very similar. There are many things that people don't realize in the light that is as destructive as in the dark. Like the sun is not just shining like people are saying. Some people get cancer from the sun, okay? Some people get burned. Sometimes the sun itself will, create forest fires that will destroy acres and acres of land. So that's just looking into nature. You already see this phenomenon that's going on in the light, okay, that people know not everybody pays attention to, but that's still there, okay. The light can destroy you, can be as much destructive as the darkness. And as much creative as well, because we know that the plant, for example, uses the sun in order to grow, so it's feeding off life and all that have you. And so does the darkness. The seed needs to be in the dark in order for it to grow as well. So there's so many analogies and so many it's such a symbiotic relationship between light and dark that adding all this good and bad judgmental judgment to it, I think, is going to clutter your mind in terms of distinguishing what, or instead of observing and experimenting with it. You shouldn't be scared of experimenting in the dark. You shouldn't be scared of experimenting in the light. I mean, I know the mainstream will tell you, when you think about meditation, most people are meditating in bright daylight or on the sun, which is great, and sun gazing is fantastic. Yes. I'm all for people getting to do it. But there's also moon gazing. There's also meditating in the dark, in the complete darkness, where you're actually just alone with yourself, where you actually go within, because a lot of people say that meditation is about going within, but then they never tell you, or you don't actually understand what it means if you are in the light and all your senses are awakened. You are actually smelling and feeding off the sun if you are meditating outside. And it's a complete different experience when you're actually in complete total darkness, where there's nothing around you, where you're really actually diving into yourself and searching for that information, or letting that information come to you. You'll be able to perceive it in such a different light and a different colors. I mean, I encourage you to experience that, to be able to meditate in the complete darkness, and to experiment in the darkness just as you should experiment in the light, so you can master both of them if you wish to do so. But it's a really pleasant experience when you start understanding why people are putting those fears into you. Every time you have a fear, try to understand where it's coming from, what's the purpose, and what is it that you are being prevented from accessing or from discovering. That's kind of how my approach is every time someone tell me you can't. I want to know why. Not necessarily try, but I want to know the reasoning behind it, and then make my own decision whether I'm going to pursue it anyways, or whether I'm going to back off. And so don't be scared of the dark. Don't be scared of the dark. I think there was a YouTuber that said that she was scared of the dark, and she didn't it was because she had like a her imagination was running so much that she started imagining things that are negative. But to me, it's like, if you have such a fruitful imagination, then use it to imagine things that are going to be there to protect you. Use it to imagine places you can go to refuge yourself to. Use it to call on to your ancestors, to all of the energy that's around you that can actually protect you, and that can actually direct you to put your focus on something else that's going to be helping you explore and do other things. Sometimes we don't recognize that we have a choice on where we want to direct our attention. And it can be very difficult at the beginning, but as you practice doing it, eventually it becomes second nature, and you are able to focus on certain things and to have the experience that you want to have, and not just leave whatever experiences is coming to you. Which is not, there's nothing wrong with leaving the experiences that are coming to you, but it's just like, if those experiences are negative, just know that you have the opportunity and the option to just focus on something else that's going to be much more agreeable. And so I'll let you with that you can reflect on the next time you go to sleep, or the next time if you want to try to be in the darkness and to be completely with just yourself. Just to learn more and to explore these two aspects in a non-judgmental way, in a neutral way, where you can actually learn how to work with the energies that are present, whether the light is on or the light is off. Because you have to understand that no matter how much you love the light, and that the light is being preached and all that stuff, the night is coming. The darkness is coming, and is always going to be there. The light came out of the darkness, so don't let other people fool you into being scared of something that is within you already. So I'll see you in the next video.